Ah, what a beautiful day. Birds are chirping, kids are singing, out of earshot because that drives me mad. And Bitcoin is at its all-time high. Ethereum is approaching its all-time high. Bitcoin Cash, even that is climbing. But nobody wants to know about that. They want to know why Litecoin's exploding. Why is Ethereum Classic exploding? What's going on? Seems like in crypto, things move really quickly. One day is like a month, 2 months, 3 months in the regular stock markets. So let's look into it. Why? Well, if we analyze this image, we can see that Litecoin's growing due to Lightning. And then if we read this comment, we can see the first Lightning Network transaction is successful on a Litecoin's mainnet. 0 fee and instant. That's pretty cool. Better than Visa? Interesting question. So that would seem to be the main driving force behind Litecoin, is this really positive news. Now, those who were doubtful of whether or not the market is impacted by news, if the market is a reactionary one, this is a very good example of just how reactionary the market can be. Very emotional, very reactive. We've known this is coming for a while, a long while, yet it's only after people have seen it with their eyes that they believe. So what's going on with Ethereum Classic? Now, if you weren't sure, it's supported by a few of the original developers, not as many, hardly any, but they are ideologically against the idea of the Ethereum network being rolled back after the DAO hack and have kept the original blockchain, while most of the developers have moved over to the new one, the one we know now as Ethereum. Now, I can't knock people having those ideological reasons. The whole point of blockchain is to be an immutable ledger, so I can understand. But why is it growing? I don't really have an answer for you. Nothing fundamentally has changed with regards to the platform. No news, no developer updates, nothing like that. So it would seem then that this is all speculation. I have heard that according to technical analysts, the chart was looking good, the 2-hour candlesticks were looking nice, and it seemed like a good entry point. But why it grew so much so quickly is anyone's guess at this point. Now, there are a ton of big growers today. Navcoin we've already talked about, already mentioned how I quite liked it, even though it's in a very competitive market. So I thought I'd have a look at Bitquints and Metal, because I do have quite a few people asking me about it, especially Metal, which is a little bit hard to understand. So let's have a look at that. If we have a look at their website, we can see it's the cryptocurrency of choice for hiking up a mountain. But other than that, it's also designed for merchants. So Metal is a banking and payment platform with cryptocurrencies integrated. Now, excuse me while I check my notes because there's a lot of stuff here. Banking access, debit card, checking account, routing number, peer-to-peer payments, merchant processing, writing capability, and wire capability. So there's quite a lot. It's almost like a hybrid of a banking system with cryptocurrencies. So Metal will first come as a web wallet, but there is iOS and Android web wallets coming, and then desktop wallets. Now, any payment made with the Metal Pay platform awards both the buyer and the receiver 5% of the transaction in Metal tokens. But why that makes the coin valuable in the first place is honestly beyond me. I understand that there's only a small cap of it, 26 million to be exact. That seems to be about it. It does have a famous supporter in Eric Voorhees, but maybe I'm missing something. So looking at Bitquints, the second highest grower in the last 24 hours, if you have a look at their website, the first thing that I see is a Forbes quote, which is a big alarm bell for me, simply because any contributor to Forbes always has the disclaimer saying opinions expressed by Forbes contributors are their own. So essentially, anyone can write for them, and that's their own opinions. Now, essentially, it would be like, say you're on your Facebook feed and you get something like this come up there, and then you're like, oh, I found this quote on Facebook. That's the opinion of Mark Zuckerberg. That's probably not the greatest comparison, but that's kind of what I see it as. I put no stock in a quote from Forbes these days, and a lot of ICOs use them. Now, the idea behind Bitcoins isn't bad. It does have a flaw, but essentially you can buy a bunch of currencies at once in any given category, and they will allow you to do that through their platform. The tokens themselves are used as gas to fund transactions. But the major problem that I have is if you buy currencies through their platform, they store it for you. Now, they can say that it's cold storage, is hack-proof, and whatnot. I'm kind of dubious, especially to the fact that if they just disappeared, I don't have access to those keys. I don't have the private keys for the funds that I buy through their platform. Therefore, for me, that's a deal breaker, but maybe for some it isn't. I think if you run with the opinion when you're investing, although this is not financial advice, that it's not what people need, but what others think others will need. If that made sense. For example, privacy coins. A lot of that market cap is not actually needed from people using it for privacy. A lot of it's speculation that others are going to need it for privacy. Maybe 3, 5, maybe 10% of all Monero holders are needing that anonymity that it provides. The rest of them are there as an investment vehicle. So I think that's how the market works. Could be wrong, but now I didn't upload yesterday. All right, before you shoot me, I've been really struggling for time because I've still been working full time. I handed in my notice, but I was still working full time. Today was my final day. No more work apart from YouTube. Now, maybe you've seen this clip before. I've seen it before, and I might get limited or no ads on this video because he's mentioning some, shall we say, controversial topics that ads don't like. But I thought this clip's important. Roll Roger Ver crying.
I think a lot of people are underestimating the way in which Bitcoin and the blockchain are going to change the power structures in society in general. I mean, I grew up in the US and I see all these people like, yeah, nuke everybody in the Middle East and kill them all. And then they have the former Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright, on 60 Minutes, one of the most popular news shows in the US. And they asked her, they said, like, there's reports that more than 500,000 Iraqi children have died as a direct result of US sanctions. And she looks back at her with a straight face and she goes, it was a really tough decision, but I think that it was worth it. Worth murdering 500,000 kids because of what the government did? And I apologize for crying, but it just disgusts me from my core when I see government people murdering people around the world. It's not just theoretical. These are real people with real lives. And it's real people, and Bitcoin has the power to undermine everything they're doing to people around the world. And I'm sorry for shouting, but it just disgusts me what these people in government do. And they do it through central banking and through the control of the money supply, and Bitcoin takes that away from them.
Now, you may or may not agree with him. Personally, I found that very powerful. I think it's very easy to get caught up in the hype around the greatest investment vehicle of all time. And, you know, I admit that's what first brought me into this space. It's probably what brought you into this space. But there's certainly a lot more to it than just that. Even though that's huge, there's more to it than just that, at least in my opinion. I mean, there has to be, right? For it to have value, it has to have a better purpose than just a Ponzi scheme, which it's not. But if it didn't solve real world issues, then it would be. But Bitcoin does solve real world issues. I had the experience of listening to two wealthy individuals in my life and asking them the same question, how do I get rich? They both kind of answered the same way. You need to look into stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. This is before crypto, by the way. Now, I did look into it. I found it difficult to get into, and I found the fees off-putting, especially when I didn't have very much at the time. So I never really went with it. But then one day, I saw a post on Reddit. This was a few months back. This was the CEO tweeting about Golem. Now, this is my first introduction to crypto. Now, I haven't mentioned how new I am to the game because I thought it could hurt my credibility as a source of news and opinion. But today I see it a little bit differently. The very first opportunity I had to learn about Bitcoin, I went all in. I wanted to know what was Golem, what was Ethereum, what was Bitcoin. I took that week off work and spent all day every day, and continue to do so out of necessity, researching. I started with how economics worked, how money works. Then I wanted to know how Bitcoin works. And I loved what I was learning, and I still do. Never in my life had I been so fascinated by anything than I was with crypto. Now, a lot of people, you could say, were blessed to get into this years ago, but that was my first opportunity, and I seized it with both hands. I took out a loan, probably larger than I was willing to lose, and I bought Bitcoin with it. Looking back on that decision, it was a fantastic decision financially, but wildly reckless and couldn't recommend it to anyone. Now, I started this channel around 6 weeks ago. If you are new into crypto, it doesn't mean you can't share a lot of value with a lot of people. 50% or more of the world's wealth is owned by less than 1% of the world's population. Do I think Bitcoin will change that? Who knows? But I do know it's the greatest distribution of wealth we are likely to ever see. Do I think Bitcoin will help reduce turmoil in the world? Again, I don't know, but I think governments would have a harder time funding conflict without being able to print the money for it. If you think it's too late to get into Bitcoin, just analyze the fundamental principles behind Bitcoin. In an immutable ledger, in not having to have a bank, in being able to transact with people without anyone else observing, without anyone trying to take their cut, in having something that doesn't inflate, that gives me and you the power to transact without anyone else's permission. That's the value behind Bitcoin, as well as the fact it's nearly $5,000, which is nice. I will admit that is nice, of course. And that's important. And it will continue to grow in my mind. Not in my mind, literally, in my opinions. And on to the news. The SEC, the Security Exchange Commission, is looking out for our best interests again. They are warning us to stay away from ICOs. That's cute. In more serious news, John Cena tweets about Bitcoin. Several Bitcoins, as you can see. Hopefully he didn't buy those coins, but actually bought Bitcoin. But 5,000 people like it. That's pretty cool. I like it too. All right, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.